friends, today we're going to look at stretching our supplies. If you're like me, you have a lot of extra supplies laying around and you don't know sometimes how to create an entire card with what you have. So I'm going to take one ink pad. We are going to use that one ink pad to create this entire card and create lots of color variation. So if you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit that subscribe and like button and let's get right into this video. I'm going to start with one mini ink pad. This is called Royal Treatment and it's by Catherine Pooler Inks. These inks are slightly different than others, but a lot of this card can be made with any ink that you have. So I'm going to start with ink blending. Now with Catherine Pooler, you can use an blending brush. You can put this directly to paper. There's a lot of different options, but I'm going to use a blending brush and I'm going to create a ombre type scene. So I want it to be darker at the top, moving to lighter. I'm going to go regular speed in this video today just so you can see generally how this works. I'll do some edits and some cuts, but I wanted you to have the full experience of how long it takes to create a card with this one ink pad. I'm ink blending and I'm using a pretty good size brush, and that's just so that I've got, when I use a larger brush, I feel like I can get lighter colors down. So if you really want to concentrate your color, using a smaller brush will do that faster. I just like adding slowly, so I'm using this a little bit bigger brush. I'd say it's probably like an inch and a half on its head there, and I'm using a regular post-it note piece just to hold on to my paper. This mat that I'm doing is silicone, so it does hold the paper pretty well, but I still like to have a hold of it at the bottom, so I'm going to use just something to cover up my fingers because you can make fingerprints in your ink blending, so you always want to make sure you're not touching the piece of paper. Now with this ink blending, I am just slowly going down. You'll see that I have to let go when I'm going to get this part. I could hold it at the top if I wanted to, but you do only have a little bit left at the bottom and you can just reapply your post-it note. Now with the post-it note, I'm not using the sticky side on my ink blended panel. I'm just using the other part to kind of hang on to it. Next thing that makes a big difference on your ink blending is your paper choice. So this is Bristol Smooth paper. You know, I will link everything in the description, so don't worry about keeping up with that. But if you don't have a specific ink blending paper, that's okay. Go feel all of your white cardstock and pick the one that feels the most smooth, and you're going to have better results. So I can feel I have several different white cardstocks, which most of us have in our supply, and I can feel along the front of the page and tell which ones are more smooth, and those are going to be my better ink blending papers. So just make sure you do that and you will find something in your stash, I'm sure, that will work well for blending this. And of course, using a brush and using your blending tools helps make this smooth as well. The nice thing about inks that blend is that they do stay wet on the paper for a little while, so just running your brush across like this really helps give you a smooth result. And you can see right now I'm adding some darkness to the top of this panel, and I'm just doing it slowly to make sure I keep that ombre effect. I just love how this is turning out. It's looking really good. We are going to create multiple layers on this card. If you remember from the front, we're going to use some scraps, and I'm going to use this same ink pad and create my own cardstock. And by doing that, I mean, you could do that with ink blending or anything, but it's just so nice to use that exact same color and have an exact match. So one of the advantages of Catherine Pooler inks is that you can do this direct to paper swiping, partly because their ink pad is very flat and spongy, whereas some ink pads are not quite that way. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking ink directly to the paper. I know I sometimes make little spots, but it's all going to fill in. This paper absorbs the ink really well. And then I'm just going to go around the edges because I only need part of this to show, and it'll give me that exact match. Now you could do this if you don't have these type of ink pads. You could try it with your ink pad and see if it's spongy enough to really get to the paper just going direct like this, or you could ink blend really dark. So maybe take a smaller ink blending brush and go around the edges of a paper so it looks like you have cardstock that matches exactly. I love that about these, and I think it's just an easy way to stretch what you have. Whatever kind of ink pad you have, you can make color coordinating cardstock on your own without having to worry about you don't have anything that matches it. So just remember this, it's a great way to use inks, and I'm just going along and making sure I've got it as dark as I want. I want this to be darker than what I've ink blended so that it gives it that really cool monochromatic look. Next, we're going to use some scraps that I have, and we're going to complete the gold part of the card. But look how this looks. Isn't that amazing? Perfect monochromatic card with one ink pad. Next, I'm going to use scraps. So I've got these little dies that are cutting my rectangles for me, and I found this piece of foiling. So this is a matte gold foiling. I also have the sentiments for this that match, and I'm going to use this paper to cut out the square and to cut out my leaf. Look at that. So you don't have to waste the middle of your paper. Just make sure you line it up well. So you see up on this top corner, I'm going to put an arrow to it. Make sure to line your leaf die up so that you've got enough room around the edge to use this as a background. So I just got to make sure I cover up that little area, and then I've got my beautiful leaf right here. So we've done most of the hard work. And then these sentiments are from Pinkfresh, and they are also foiled in the same foil. And I just made a ton of them at one time, and I've got them left over. So very easy to create the rest of this card, but I'm going to take you through it. Okay, so I'm going to add some glue to the back of this sparingly because I don't want to get any glue on the foiling that's the front. And I'm going to put this on my card, make it even. I usually use some type of T-ruler to make sure I've got things level. And you can see even through that card, remember the middle of that cardstock is white because we made our own cardstock, which is awesome. So I'm going to use a T-ruler, make sure I get it all even and straight. When you're doing things like rectangles, you want everything to have the right spacing and to be level. It just makes your card have a more professional look. So I'm getting all that set, and then I realized that I would like to add a little extra detail to that front panel that we ink blended. So I'm going to add some gold accents to it, and I'm going to show you how I did it. It's hard to see these in the picture, so just make sure you pay attention to that zoomed in version because it has a very impressive look at the final card. So with this ink and with lots of your inks that you own, they are water reactive, which means you can splatter on them, all kinds of things. If you have some metallic watercolors, you can splatter with gold. So that's what I'm going to do. I use a paintbrush that I like, a little bit of water, and this watercolor, and I'm going to hold it up so you can see how that gold looks. It's a lot easier to see on camera than it is to see in like the photos. It's hard to catch these little glimpses of gold, but they just make the card so extra special. And I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to glue it. Can you see all that shimmer? Let me tilt it a little bit. You see how it's got just that gentle shimmer to it? It looks so good. I love it like that. Now we have all of our pieces, so all we have to do is put it together. So I'm going to glue this panel on the front. I did give it time to dry. You don't want to mess up your splatter by letting it be wet when you're putting it on because you'll mess it up with your fingers. So let this dry. Now I'm going to add the front panel. Now I'm going to add my delicate leaf here from scrapbook.com. This is one of their originals, and I love it. It fits perfectly on a card like this. And all I have to do is glue that down and put the sentiment on it. I always kind of move my sentiment around the card to try to decide how I'm going to set the card up, and just see. This hello doesn't quite fit without covering up some of the leaf in the bottom, so I kind of decided that it should be a focal point, and I'll just put it right in the middle of the leaf. With this leaf, I'm going to be very careful with my glue so that I don't have glue seeping out from behind it. So just using a teeny tiny amount of glue and putting it down on the front panel. I even started with gluing part of the bottom down and then slowly doing the top, just so that I don't have it sliding around on my card. I can go ahead and get the base where I want it to be, and then use a little bit of glue to put the rest down. I'm going to use an acrylic block to hold some pressure on this to make sure it sticks, and then we'll put the sentiment on and we'll be done with this card. So if you've made it this far, make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button, and know that all of the things that I've used in this will be linked in the description below. All that's left is using a little foam tape and popping this sentiment up in the front of the card. You could add other embellishments, anything you want to, but I wanted to keep this card simple, so I'm just putting my sentiment on the front and using my T-ruler to line it up, and that's going to be it for this card. So I hope that you will rethink your supplies and come up with some easy cards you can make with one ink pad. I think that you're going to be really happy with the monochromatic look and how much you can do with just that simple ink pad. So if you haven't seen any of my other videos, I have so many, please consider checking them out. There will be some linked at the end. And of course, make sure if you're shopping today or even just going to look at these products that you click on the links in the description. I enjoyed having you. Have a great day, and I hope to see you back on the channel again very soon. Bye!